everybody, it's your girl Drift Nasty. Today I wanted to discuss a debacle that Just Pearly Things has gotten herself into. She had an interview with this guy, Nick Fuentes, and she got a lot of backlash for it. Apparently, Fuentes has been an open racist. Somehow he gets the title of being white. He actually is of Mexican descent. He has Italian, Spanish, Irish, some English. He does carry racist views as far as black people go. I personally wouldn't categorize him as what typically people call white people. His skin is white, yes, but he's not just straightforward English, British, Irish. You know what I mean? He's got a mix of him going on of Mexican descent. But yeah, so I just want everybody to keep that in mind as well before we move forward. He has proclaimed himself as a white supremacist, but technically he is not completely white. Now they're questioning on, well, is Pearl racist because she had Fuentes on and she didn't push back on some things that he said while on her podcast. Freddie T is working a double today and he's not going to be here. I wanted to do something in the terms of where I'm going to do this reaction, and then whenever he's got time on a day off or something, then he could do a separate reaction to the same thing, because there's a lot of people who say a lot of ignorant things pertaining to race topics, as if he doesn't have a mind of his own, and he just says whatever because he's married to me and I'm present or whatever, so he could have the chance to do his own reaction to it and give his take on it. I'm gonna do my reaction separately so that we don't have that confusion. But yeah, as far as this Pearl thing goes, I feel like it's totally been blown out of proportion. She also did give her explanation / apology for how what she said was interpreted and the things of that matter that were brought to her attention by her staff and people who know her personally after the fact. So we're going to get into all of that. I'll post that at the end. That way you could see what her explanation was for her even saying some of these things that were in question. So she went ahead and she put it all out on the table. She's not running from it. And she explained why she made those comments and what she meant by those comments.
I wish you luck, and,
I don't.
Wow.
I really don't. I don't wish luck to racists.
Oh, I'm not racist.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, Nick.
Yeah, I am a little bit racist.
And the Italians, we do not claim you.
Oh, hey, the Italians don't claim you. You're the one dating a black guy.
Let me say from the beginning, yeah, I am not a fan of Nick Fuentes. I'm not a fan of him. I think that he is a white supremacist. I think that he has some very just bad things to say. Yeah, I'm not in his camp at all. I do not agree with anything he has to say. I don't agree with any of his ideologies.
Pearl, you f***ed up. You knowingly invited a white supremacist and a self-proclaimed racist onto a platform which is primarily supported by, at least initially, and produced by black people.
Now, as far as her inviting him on to the show and for him to say that that was a mess up on her end, honestly, the clear truth is that it's her show. She can have on whoever she wants on. And just to be completely honest, the things that brings in the views from a business standpoint is anything of controversy. So if she has a controversial figure onto her show, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a mess up. It doesn't mean that she agrees with his ideology. It's just simply something that's going to bring in the views, because he is a very like a bigger public figure as far as the stream world goes. I personally haven't watched any of his videos. I don't know him like that, but apparently he actually has quite a big following, and he's been doing it for a while. He speaks on political views and things of this nature. So that's why I'm sure that she had him on the show. Even though, like, what he's saying, MTR, whatever his name is, like, what he's saying is, oh, well, you have employees who are black, basically, and you have a big African American following. So why would you have the guy on your show? Well, it's a controversial topic. That's why.
This comes across as insensitive to downright nasty.
I don't know. I don't really agree with that, MTR. I don't agree with that because, I mean, Pearl is not the first person to bring white supremacists or racists onto a show. I just don't agree with that. And the fact that Pearl has staff who are black, I mean, that, you know, that's beside the point. Do you know what I mean? I just think that she brought on a controversial person. Obviously, that was going to bring around like a conversation. It was going to get views. People are going to want to hear what goes down. I think that, you know, this is not the first show that has brought white supremacists on. Do you get what I'm saying? So, I mean, Oprah's done it. Jerry Springer's done it. A lot of other people with shows have done that thing.
And I want to be clear. It's not just inviting said person to the conversation that's upsetting, because conversations with people who don't agree with each other or don't agree with a particular position, if done in a healthy way, can promote civil discourse.
Okay.
But your up was to not only not defend the people who help create the content on your platform, but to also push a narrative that is insensitive and damaging to those very same people.
That part I do agree with MTR about the pushback, because if people get out of line on her show, she knows how to shut it down. She does speak her mind 9 times out of 10. I won't even say all of the time. I feel like it's more so of if she feels like it's a bigger creator than her, or somebody who, you know, is gonna have more pull over when her show is being watched. I feel like she kind of holds back more than, but for me personally, like with the stance on it that I take, if I had him on my show, even for the controversy aspect of it, if I had him on my show and he's saying these things, then I would interject, right? Like in the parts where I'm like, okay, well, you're being completely ridiculous, and I would give my opinion. That's the point of the conversation, right? When he's saying things and then you disagree or you agree, you chime in, especially when you're the one who's hosting the show. You give your input and you kind of guide the way that the conversation is going to go. If I have a black husband and I have a white supremacist sitting on my show, and then he's telling me about how I should be ashamed because I'm with somebody black, or my ancestors or whatever, my parents and things like that, they're going to be looking at me a certain way because I have a black husband, I'm going to tell him about himself. Okay, so that's the part I agree with. I don't agree 100%. I don't think that Pearl is racist. I don't agree 100% with what he says, but I will say that she definitely could have said something more. Like, okay, since I'm white, if it was somebody who was anti-white, I obviously wouldn't invite him on. Like, I wouldn't care to have the conversation with him. But if my husband wanted to talk to him, right, and then if he started spewing off things about white people, then I would expect that my husband would check him, right? That's how you hold people accountable, is that you check them and check what they're saying. And they were like, oh, F all white people. Obviously, you're not somebody that I want to have a conversation with. I don't care about your view. I don't care to hear or to have an argument, because eventually it is a trigger for me, especially today, the way that I feel like I'm looked at and I'm viewed, and some of the crazy outlandish things that I'm hearing. I'm not going to want to be sitting in the presence of and giving my time of day to somebody who basically hates me because my skin is white. But if we're talking about the controversial part of it, the business aspect of what we do, then yeah, it makes sense to have somebody on who's going to strike up an argument, who there's going to be conversation had, there's going to be some back and forth, because that's what carries your channel.
I don't think that your platform would be as big as what it is today if it wasn't for the essential utilization of Black people, Black relationship topics, and Black talent.
Pearl got so much backlash and heat from it that she took it off of there, so you can't find the video on Just Pearly Things. But if you look up Obsidian, look up Obsidian's reaction to Pearl and Nick Fuentes interview, he gives his input on it, but he has the entire video on there that he did the reaction to. It's 3 hours, and it's not even a topic about race.
Pearl has recently come under fire for these particular comments.
I'm trying to get my Africans in America. My Africans. Oh gosh.
I don't know why you had to do that, like that little, rewind 3 times. Like, I mean, Brett, like it sounds like you're trying to, push a narrative with that. And I kind of feel like that's a bit unfair because you know Pearl personally. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you know her personally. You've had conversations with her. You've got to know her just as I've got to know her. You know she's not racist, bro. So, I think that, putting that little repeating little My Africans part, to me, that's a bit distasteful, but,
Even the creators, media in general, there's like a bad habit of trying to paint a picture to go along with what you're saying. Like, you want people to look at her in a negative light, so now you're trying to amplify a certain part of what's being said to be able to, like sway people into feeling the same way about her that you do. However, like I said at the end, she's going to explain a lot of these comments. That comment in particular, I understand what she was saying. She shouldn't have just left it as that. She could have threw the word employees in there, you feel me? Because she was like, oh, well, basically, she's talking about actual people who are coming from Africa to come and help her to do her podcast. Like the cameraman, his name is Blessing, and he goes through a lot of issues with having to come back and forth for this show. And so she's like, oh, I'm trying to help my Africans get over here, right? So when she said it like that, then the media painted it this spin-off of she's showing ownership over these people coming from Africa, like they're her Africans. That's not what she was saying at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, just imagine it for a second that if she was actually Black and then she said, oh, I'm trying to get my Africans over here, you're not going to look at it like it was something said out of ownership. So I'm just saying, like, there's more than one way to look at these things. What she was saying was she wanted to get her employees from Africa over here to be able to help her with her thing, like to help for it to be easier for them to travel, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of issues as far as, traveling with the passports and things.
Let's keep going.
Oh boy.
They're gonna get trouble. This sounds similar to the slavery stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said, I wanted a myth for my people to live by. So they often, but that's what they do, is they embellish, and I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible, it was.
Right.
But they want to make it like more horrible so that they can control people.
This is the part that I personally don't agree with, that she actually did mess up and say, because everybody knows that slavery was bad. Bad things happened to the slaves. They were mistreated, and on many different levels. There was a lot of bad things that happened in slavery days. Nobody, for the most part, other than, people who I feel like are just trying to get a rise out of people, would say, oh, slavery wasn't bad. You know what I mean? So she shouldn't have said that, to be like, oh, embellish. For those of y'all who don't know, that means like they made it sound worse than what it was, which I don't agree with. However, I think what she was trying to say about how he was like, well, meant for my people to live by and things like that, is the fact that we stay in this loop about it. Like, this stuff gets thrown up so much that it's like people who are descendants of those slaves can't, can't really move forward in a thought process as far as, being hurt by the system, right? That's where that term victim comes from. When me and my husband was talking about this, and then we were saying like that, sometimes Black people do like to play the victim card and things like that, as if Black people today went through slavery themselves, which they did not. The ones here in America, slavery still goes on. It didn't never end. But here in America, that form of slavery is no longer a thing. No, none of the younger generations or anybody has went through that experience. You can have the history. We've said this before. You can have the history. You can assess the history. And then you conduct your life in a way to where that history does not have to repeat itself. That's why history is supposed to be there. Not to be as a constant roadblock and for a way for people to be brainwashed of, you can't get ahead in this country because the white man is going to put you down. They're going to keep you back. You can't succeed. That's not true. I know there's plenty of Black successful people here in America. So it just depends on the narrative that this stuff is being used for. I personally feel like this is the part that she messed up on. You can't say slavery wasn't bad or it wasn't as bad as people made it seem. You're comparing an actual historical event to one movie. There was an argument made that, oh, well, she doesn't... she's not educated on this, so she shouldn't speak on it. White people aren't educated on it. No, like, everybody learned something and it impacted them in a different way. Some people paid attention more than others. Some dug further than what you're being taught in public school. But for the most part, if we're just going off the public school basis of it, we were all in the same classes. We all learned the same thing. It was just up to you if you were going to dig further to see, because obviously public school doesn't put it all out there. They don't want anybody to know more than what they're willing to teach, more than what they want you to know. So if you dug into it anymore, then you know that there's a whole nother aspect of what happened at that time than what it is. Because if not, then you wouldn't even have even Black people who don't know the facts of what happened back then. You still have people who think that white people got on a boat from Britain and it was just the British, and that the British got on a boat and then went and pulled the ship up as far as it could go and then got into the smaller rowboats and then went and then stole Black people and then put them on the big ship, collected them all together, and then brought them over here. That's not what happened. But if you only go off of what you're told out of the history book, that's what one would believe. Even I thought, wow, that's what happened. That's pretty messed up. But then when you think about it, that's the thing. You have to think for yourself. When you think about it, it's like it didn't make sense. So, and then you find out later that the Africans that were brought here and made African Americans, they were prisoners of war. They were captured in Africa. They lost the war, they were captured, and then they were sold and traded off to other countries. That was part of the slave trade. It was not only, it never only happened to the African Americans here. So those are kind of things that I found out later on down the line, that I had to actually look into. My husband is African. He's from Africa. And even he said that, which I've always had like the feeling that that was what it was. But even he confirmed it, because I didn't know about the prisoner of war part. He taught me that. So, I mean, you're only as ignorant as you choose to be at this time, where we actually have the power at our fingertips to educate ourselves. You don't have to go off of just the books that people have written and specifically put in these countries for you to read. You have the option to go deeper.
Let me just stop it there, yeah? And I'm gonna be very honest, like, and I've told Pearl, and I checked Pearl on that myself. Like the next day, I was just like, that was a really like poor choice of words. I think that she didn't really understand that. Yeah, you are saying that slavery was horrible, but when you say embellish, it kind of makes it out to be like it wasn't as bad as people think it is. And she understands that it was bad. Do you get what I'm saying? She said it was horrible, but when you add the embellish part, it just kind of, it comes across as sour. Do you get what I'm saying? It's going to rub people the wrong way. It's going to make people have just a bad reaction towards what you're saying and towards you as personally. And if she was racist, I wouldn't work with her. It doesn't matter what money or what deal we're in, I wouldn't work with her. At the end of the day, she does a lot of things, a lot of positive things for a lot of people and puts a lot of people in good positions. And she doesn't have to. Do you get what I'm saying? So I understand. I understand that she may have not really understood what she was saying, but I did have to let her know that it was taken offensively. Like me personally watching it, I didn't like what she said, and I told her straight to her face that, it left a sour taste in my mouth, and she has to address it.
Now, what's crazy is that I came across these comments while I was live streaming a couple of days ago, and what started out as a laughy, jokey live stream where I wanted to talk about my time up in London quickly diverted to one of the worst live streams that I've ever had in my life. And honestly, it was a trip to hell as I discovered the magnitude of the conversation that she had with this figure by the name of Nick Fuentes. Comments regarding slavery being embellished. I said this on the stream, and I maintain it today, that Pearl needs to be held responsible for this comment. Likening a quote from the writer of Roots explaining a myth for his people to hold on to does not negate the documented history of the atrocities that happened to Black people.
Me and top producer, we both spoke to Pearl, off camera. And we made it very clear that, using the word slavery or saying the phrase slavery was embellished, it just is not, it's just not cool. Like you can't be saying things like that. Do you get what I'm saying? She's explained to me, or explained to us as a team, as a network, what she meant by that comment. And I honestly, again, I will say Pearl is not racist. She used a poor choice of words, and, I believe we have checked her on it. We've spoke to her directly without holding back and stuff like that.
Let me explain a little bit further how thoroughly that this actually is, because for me, it comes down to a question of ethics. You're interviewing a known Nazi sympathizer and an anti-Black creator and not offering any pushbacks whatsoever. In fact, you're adding in your own fake news regarding the embellishment or the exaggeration of slavery. Additionally, there are times within the conversation where it's laughy, it's jokey, it's kikiing, especially when you got specific in certain comments that reflected on CP time. And let me also say this, is that generally CP time is something that's laughed amongst people of melanation, but it's not taken as a joke when you're doing it with a person who is a self-proclaimed racist. I begin to question why you didn't sympathize with the plight of African Americans or Black people in general, and not once in the interview did you have at least one pro-Black stance or some form of ethical defense or cultural sensitivity for the people who carry your production machine forward, or the people that that watch your channel. And you have to find a newfound respect for understanding more about the people that work for you, or who a component of the content is made for.
Honestly, I don't think Pearl really was thinking about it that deep.
The embellishment of slavery is where you display the true level of your insensitivity and lack of understanding about the culture that you have immersed yourself in, whether you like it or not. Pearl, at the end of the day, you f***ed up. I completely, as I said on that stream, denounce your statements. And I believe that you need to be held completely accountable for your words and your actions. And I want you to do it for the sake of my history, for the sake of my community, for the sake of my audience, and the people who have followed me and will continue to follow me, Pearl, the people that found you through my channel.
You want her to be held accountable. Well, then when you check her, that's holding her accountable. Her then making a response video to explain herself and then apologize for her choice of words, that's her being held accountable and taking responsibility. The thing about it is that he knows her on a personal level. It's not just like some business partner. They were friends, right? Because he's part of this manosphere thing. She, even though she's a woman, she was more so like a manosphere kind of woman. I don't know how to describe it other than that. But they were actually friends. And then just for him to start making a stream and then talking about the things that they were going to do in London, and then one of his followers, or however many of his followers, brought it to his attention about the interview that she did with Nick Fuentes, and then for him to completely flip the script on her and then be like, oh, I just don't F with you because you said 2 minutes of something I didn't agree with out of a 3-hour video. I feel like that just makes him a fake homeboy. Your intentions really aren't genuine. You're just kind of like, oh, well, I denounce her because that's what's going to make people want to continue to follow me. Because other people wanted you to denounce her, so you did. Right? You're pacifying your audience. So that, I feel like he's a poser on that whole situation right there.
Pearl, we had a one-on-one conversation before I recorded this video. And I told you, can no longer work with you. We had a dating show that was in the pipeline.
See, this part is a bit. This part is where it kind of threw me, like, because obviously we'd recorded some stuff. MTR's now saying that he doesn't want anything to do with Pearl or whatever, and I don't know, bruv. I don't know. Because, like, Pearl personally. It's not like you did some live stream and you've only spoke to her on FaceTime calls and stuff like that. You know her personally, like, to the point where, doing a U-turn or, like, just kind of disavowing or excommunicado. I don't know if that's fair, like. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, everything to do with being held accountable for what you say and checking her on, where she's gone wrong or what, you or I found offensive. Because I'll be real, as I said, the whole embellishment comment, to me personally, I don't agree with that at all. I think I did pull her up on that. I told her that she has to, address what she was saying and make it clear what she meant by that and make it clear for everybody, the viewers, subscribers, everybody, like. Do you get what I'm saying? Absolutely. But to just kind of oh yeah, I don't mess with you no more. I don't F with you no more. Like, it's just kind of like, I don't know, like, that's sour in itself, in my opinion.
Exactly. Everybody in life makes mistakes, especially when it comes to things that they've said, the way that it's taken. If she said something in a way that made it be taken a certain way, that's when you check her. Again, we've already said this. When you check them, then they can correct themselves. If they continue to do it down the line, okay, fine. That's grounds for you to then make a judgment off of that. But if you check her and then she has a chance to see what went wrong, how she could change it in the future, and then she changes the way that she speaks in the future so that it's not taken out of context, then there is no problem. But to totally damn somebody after the first time that they mess up, I think is a little outrageous. I mean, I compare this stuff to cheating. If you're with somebody and then they cheat on you one time, okay, well, then give them a second chance, right? Because I believe that everybody in life deserves a second chance. However, if they do it again, and then we can look at this like it's a habit, nobody is owed a third chance. If somebody decides to give you a third chance, that's their decision, but you're not owed that. You're owed a second chance, a chance to correct yourself.
Again, to my community, to my audience, to the people who have followed me and will continue to follow me into the future, I have to take personal accountability for my working relationship with Pearl. And trust me when I say I take full ownership and full accountability. I had absolutely no idea of the comments that were made in the Nick Fuentes interview. And had I known this prior to, I would not have gone to London. I did not know about this until I came back. And then I went and did a live stream. And then my supporters let me know.
My question is, I just wonder if MTR watched the whole video. That's because a lot of times, as a content creator, and I'm sure he's probably experienced this himself, you know, people out there, they will cut clips of long videos, like a video that could be like 3 hours long, and then they will cut like 30 seconds and make it like that was the whole 3 hours.
I can no longer support or associate myself with the Just Pearly Things platform. And for those who still wish to continue to support voices of women that are down into the space who agree with the particular message that we put up on Jump Street, I want you guys to go check out and follow the following.
Nah, man, I'm not trying to hear. You know, now he wants to start talking about other female.
So that part, he starts spewing out names of all these other creators and people who you can go and watch who are all black women, right? So then it was kind of like, it's like, oh, well, don't worry about this white bitch over here. Go over here and listen to some black women where you're not going to have to worry about them bringing on white supremacists, right? But that's just him being petty at the end of the day. There was no substance to that.
I want to first say I take full accountability for everything that happened. Everything that happens in life, as I say to the girls on my show, is my own fault. The fact that people are making these videos is my own fault. And the situation that I'm in is my own fault. Now I'm going to give you guys an explanation and give you guys context for some of the conversations that were had. Just know it's not an excuse. It's my own fault. I take full accountability for everything that happened. I'm going to answer questions that people have brought my way. So the first thing is, why did you have Nick on? The reasoning behind having Nick Fuentes on was because I heard that he was on the no-fly list and he lost his bank account. Now, from your point of view, you would think, why would you invite someone on that's on the no-fly list, right? That would be a bad... Well, he's not anymore. That's how he flew, but he was. So I was more just curious why this man was banned on everything. I'll tell you what I knew and what I didn't know. So I did know that he was a known racist. I did know he was a known sexist. I did know that basically every bad name in the book from the right and the left, everyone hated him. So, the reason I had him on was because, guys, people say that stuff about me. They say I'm sexist. They say I'm a misogynist. And, you know, I really just like to give people the benefit of the doubt when I interview them. I don't go into interviews trying to interrogate someone. I just more try to listen and see where they're coming from. In hindsight, I should have had someone, you know, maybe Sarah Garvey, maybe another content creator that could have pushed back more and really was more educated on the topics that he was talking about than I was, because I certainly was not an expert in any of the stuff that he was talking about. I did remove the interview. I, again, did not think through a lot of the repercussions of posting that, so I just removed it. If you do want to see the full interview, Obsidian did react to it. That's on his channel. The intention was not, I guess, to hide it. It was just, you know, this might not have been the best move. I'm just going to remove it now. Racism has no place in society, and I do take accountability for bringing him on. I made some remarks to my producer, Blessing. Now, Blessing is a godsend. Okay, Blessing has made the production quality literally phenomenal. He's so talented. And during this conversation, we were talking about immigration, and I said, I'm trying to get my Africans to America. Now, I watched it back, guys. It was so cringy. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. I meant my African employees. I just said Africans. The reason,
is because, like, why wouldn't you just say my employees or whatever to America? The African passport system is just more difficult than the UK one. I didn't know, like, Blessing had to go to the embassy or something to apply to go to America with me next month. We're going to go do some work there. And, yeah, and so I've just found that the immigration process is a bit more difficult. So that's why I referred to them, because my African employees, I needed more help with. And, you know, I was saying in the interview that I wanted more open border policies because I wanted them to come. I really respect the African culture. I had no ill will or malice towards any of that. But one thing that they cut out from that clip was that Nick Fuentes did say after, "Oh, I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm just kidding." Okay. Now, even so, it was still in poor taste. Nick Fuentes was talking about he's always late. And I said, "You were on time today." "Oh, Blessing was the one that's late." And it's sort of an inside joke here at Just Pearly Things. Like, Blessing is just, he's phenomenal, but he's a late guy. And every time he comes in, he says African time.
I totally understand what she's saying about this too. They call it a CP time or whatever, BP time, however it is that you want to, like, they say these little things because YouTube is so sensitive now, and people could get their video demonetized or taken down because they say certain things. So I'm going to have to do it too in the version that they say from where I'm from, and a lot of people know it as. But dealer time, right? Okay, so just use your imaginations. What things start with D that people would deal? Okay, so dealer time is what we call it, which basically means, like, you don't ever show up on time. Like, you show up when you show up. So that, I get what she's saying. It's like, it was a joke that started with the guy Blessing. She brought it up and said it at a time when a white supremacist was on. So obviously this is being spun a different way, but this is a joke between them that happens all the time. And yeah, so it's the same thing as what we say with the dealer time. You're late, you show up when you get ready to show up.
When I was referring to him during this joke, I was like, African. Now, I was saying African time, referring to what he says when he comes in. Now, what I realized is this was especially disrespectful because we did have someone that's a known white supremacist race, like, you know, making that joke in front of him, with him, is just in poor taste. And I did apologize to him for it. I really had no malice or ill will. My intention was never to be, you know, quote unquote leader in the black manosphere or the manosphere in general. I really have always just looked at the men as the leader. I mean, they're the thought leaders. Let's just be honest. And me, I try to support them in any way I can. You know, I bring them on my show, but saying I'm a leader in the space, you know, I feel like women follow, men lead. The demographic of the women on my show. Guys, I haven't done recruiting in months. So when I started, I never expected it to blow up this fast. I never in my life thought I'd have 1 million subscribers in a year. I wrote my goals for the year before and it was 100,000. I thought I'd maybe get 100K by the end of the year. The only time I have is maybe to help out if we're low on a show. So like, or if there's a really big panel, like the Andrew Tate panel, I handpicked everyone that was on that. But in general, guys, I really don't recruit. I think one reason that there have been so many black people on the show is because the recruiter that I picked was Nigerian. And he just had the type of job that he could recruit while he went on the job. And he knew a lot of people. He was already in the podcast space. So he was just a good recruiter. So it makes sense that he knows more Nigerian women. So I said that slavery was embellished in the interview. Now, that not only is that comment insensitive, it's not accurate. There were things in slavery that were worse than what was shown on TV. What I was referring to, I don't even want to tell you guys what I was trying to say because it wasn't what came out and it doesn't even matter. Again, if you watch the full thing, I was more referring to the system of using atrocities to control people. That's what I was trying to say. But to say that it wasn't, that it was embellished is, oh gosh, so stupid, insensitive. And And nor am I, sure, I've read a couple books, but I'm not informed or qualified enough to really have that conversation. So my friend Gabby came on the show with him, and she's dating someone that is Black. And he would say openly racist comments to her. Now, I should have pushed back on that. Like, I've been in interracial relationships. So for me to not push back on that, especially with all of the people that have been on my show, was stupid. It was stupid. I just, I was kind of like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to say. I was like, oh gosh. And the video we were watching wasn't even supposed to be about that. So I really don't have an excuse. It was just stupid. And again, I take full accountability for this stuff. And, if I had to do it over again, I would do it differently, but I can only move forward. So moving forward, I really would be open to having a discussion with someone that can bring more awareness and education to the situation. So I'm open to you guys' suggestions in the comments. I also invite anybody that's made a video about me or has comments to address with me to go on Obsidian's stream tonight. It's 8 p.m. GMT. Blessing will also be there. And yeah, because I don't want to run from this stuff. Again, a lot of this stuff was not well thought out. A lot of this stuff I could have done better, and I do take full accountability for that.
So there you have it. People ended up getting what they wanted. She got on here and explained herself to the T. I personally, my take on this is that Pearl is not a racist, and everything that guy said in that 2-minute clip of a 3-hour-long video is taken out of context. Like she said, old boy Obsidian, he did a reaction to it. The whole video is there on his reaction. Go to his channel, type in Obsidian reacts to Pearl and Nick Fuentes interview, and it'll pop up there. The whole conversation had nothing to do with that. This thing has been blown out of proportion. And now I feel like Pearl is and will probably be for a little while bullied due to what she said. There's people saying that white people don't need to have an input on anything that has to do with Black people. You can't tell people what they can and cannot speak on. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. Even the racist guy, Nick Fuentes, is entitled to his opinion. I ain't saying it's right. I ain't saying you gotta agree with it, but that's the way that he thinks. That's his opinion. So that was my take on this whole situation. I was watching it earlier today, and I thought, well, maybe I should wait till my husband gets home and then tell him, run it by him and see if this is something he wants to do. But then at the same time, I was like, well, then you got these haters that have been writing on here and then telling him basically he doesn't have a mind of his own and he says whatever just because he's married to a white woman. One guy, I'm not even kidding, said that my husband was compromised. So he could give you his uncompromised opinion on his own at a time when I won't be in the room. I won't be involved with anything that he says, his opinion on it. His opinion will be spoken and not in the presence of the white woman who's pulling the strings because he's like a little puppet, whatever. But so I just wanted to get my take on it. Pearl is not racist. If you ever go watch her channel, Just Pearly Things, you'll see the way that she moves. Some of the topics that she talks about is actually pretty good. I do feel like the only thing that she messed up on was when she was basically trying to say, oh, well, slavery wasn't that bad. You can't really say that. It was bad. So that was the only thing that she messed up on. Her having him on the show doesn't matter. She can have whoever she wants on the show. It's all about, at the end of the day, what's going to get you views. Common sense is not common. Just because you know not to say something because it's going to sound terrible or if people could take it out of context doesn't mean that the next person has a thought process like that where before they speak, they have a run through of, oh, well, if I say this, well, then I'm going to be painted out to be a racist or a sexist or whatever. So not everybody's brain functions on the same wavelength, at the same momentum, none of that. So there's my take on it. Thank y'all, everybody, for coming to join me, Drift Nasty, on the It's Beyond Me podcast. And we'll see y'all later.